Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show, emanating from Bank of America Stadium. What a beautiful, I mean, there hasn't been a cloud in the sky all morning long. It's going to be a little bit chilly, maybe. I don't know if that's the Los Angelino now and me talking, but it's going to be probably around in the mid-50s, could even dip to the high 40s at some point during tonight's Week 9 kickoff between the Saints and the Carolina Panthers, easily the front runners for this division. As we all know, the Falcons on a bye week at 2-6. The Bucs have been dreadful, with the exception of that one day in Pittsburgh, where of all teams that they beat at their home, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have since been on fire. So tonight's teams will battle for first place in the NFC South after 9 weeks, and we presume for the entire 2014 season. And joining me here, guys with boots on the ground in their respective communities, we have Scott Fowler of the Charlotte Observer. Good to see you, sir.
We brought that Carolina blue weather out just for you.
I appreciate that. I'm a Michigan guy, so don't call a timeout on me, all right? And Larry Holder of the New Orleans Times-Picayune. Good to see you, Larry.
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
This is winter for New Orleans.
Is that right?
This is blustery.
So it's not just me?
No, it's not just
okay.
Me. Yeah, we're wearing flip-flops in December in New Orleans.
I like it. Yeah, that was always fun, obviously, going to any Super Bowl that they've had. So, Scott, let's start with you first. The Carolina Panthers starting 2-0. They have only won one game since. To what do we attribute that?
I think more than anything, Rich, I would attribute it to their defense, which was number 2 in the league last year and has had all sorts of problems for a lot of this season. And then their offensive line. They've had some injuries there, but they also gambled a little and lost in terms of trying to not put a lot of money in that position. They didn't use a number 1 draft pick on it, for instance. And so the offensive line and the defense, I think, have been the issues.
Well, they had to use a number 1 draft pick on the wide receiver position because they
had to have that too.
Emptied the cupboard.
They did,
to say the least.
Right.
And Benjamin at least has panned out right there. And talking of the defense, though, with Carolina, is Greg Hardy the third rail? Discussion on that.
Probably so.
Has his departure truly meant that much, do you think?
I don't think it's all of it, Rich, because the defensive secondary, they also emptied the cupboard there to some extent, but a lot of it, yes. I mean, Hardy is their best pass rusher. You could argue he's probably their second best defensive player behind Luke Kuechly, and to take him off the field has changed a lot of things.
Why did that happen? Was it Ray Rice? Is that essentially what pushed it to that limit here?
I think, yes. I believe basically the climate changed because they let him play the first game.
Yes, they did.
And then after that, Ray Rice and the video, and I think everything changed. And so Hardy could conceivably come back late in the season, but he's going on trial in mid-November, and he would have to win that trial.
So that's next.
November 17th
is the next big date for that. But that's when it starts, as we all know. The wheels of justice grinds. However, the wheels of justice grind. And to what do we attribute the 3-4 start in New Orleans?
Well, I think you combine all of it. The offense hasn't been as efficient as maybe you would hope, but it's more defensively. Look, last year, big rebound with Rob Ryan, and you have essentially the same personnel, and you added Jarris Byrd at the start. Now he's out for the season with the knee injury.
That's a big blow.
Right, and yet the last couple of weeks they've actually played better without him, which is kind of bizarre. And I think, look, they don't have the same pass rush as they had last year. They really came on. Cam Jordan and Junior Gillette became two of the bigger, best duos in the NFL as far as rushing the passer, and they just haven't gotten it done with those two guys. And so you're not, and at the same time, no pass rush, you're not creating turnovers. It took the Saints a long time, actually the last 2 weeks, Detroit and Green Bay, they finally got pressure on quarterback, they finally created turnovers, and I think you started seeing the trend. And look, Green Bay, that game was by far their best game, and I figured we'd see that Saints team from the start, and it's really the first time we've seen that good of a Saints team this year and just last week.
Well, you mentioned the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, though, this has not looked, even at home, even in the home games, even the game against the Bucs, I was mentioning how the Bucs won in Pittsburgh. That was their best game. They had the game in New Orleans sitting right there for them to take as well. And offensively, Breeze in the first 5 games had just 1 touchdown of 20 or more yards in the air, and he's had 3 of those in the last 2 weeks. What has gone on that side of the football?
I really think, well, the running game has actually been a strength, and they've been doing musical chairs, but I think he's needed to learn his young wide receivers. Brandon Cooks is a rookie. Look, he's got dynamite potential, but he needed to get some rapport with him. Kenny Still's second year. I think he's starting to mesh with those two, and they're the two who have been the big play threats these last couple of weeks. And I think you're starting to see that. He's gaining confidence, but he's had such a veteran group of receivers around him for so long. At some point, he's got to learn these two young, budding stars, I think, in the league, specifically Brandon Cooks. I think he could be dynamite, but he's starting to gain some trust in those guys.
So there's a no-brainer here in Carolina. Cam Newton's going to get his option picked up, correct? Or they already...
yeah. Cam Newton is they're saving money partly to pay Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly.
That's
He will have his option picked up. He'll never leave here.
Never. I know, obviously that.
I don't think so, my opinion.
No, but when you say those are the two guys that you're going to build this team around over the next decade, for sure. But at what? I mean, what about around them, right? I mean,
right. That's the key. That's the problem. You know, Larry was mentioning those two young stars. The Panthers are going to have all kinds of trouble with those guys tonight because they're not very fast in the secondary. I mean, they are trying to cobble it together on the secondary and on the offensive line, in part to save money down the road to pay Cam and to pay Luke Kuechly and to pay Starla Tulele, who they think will be a star at defensive tackle, but at what cost?
Right. And so the New Orleans Saints' future, Breeze is over 35 now, right? He says he could play till he's 80 practically, and then he got he got randomly drug tested. We all know, we all heard that story.
Right.
The Saints, Peyton is locked up long term. Is there any concerns about the long-term viability going on there at all?
Well, you look at Drew Brees' salary cap number, and you look at a lot of these salary cap numbers, they're going to shoot through the roof. Every year they're against the ceiling and having to cut bait with guys. They did that this past offseason, cut a lot of veteran guys. So I'm at some point, you're going to have to ask Drew Brees, look, Tom Brady-esque type of deal, let's backload this because his number jumps from 18 to 26 next year. Ooh. And there are several numbers. Jairus Byrd jumps from 3.5 to 10. It's only going to get bigger as this team gets older, and they're getting older. Some of their big stars are getting older, so it's going to be tough. This is the window.
This is it right now.
This is really it, and I think that's why they went all in Jairus Byrd. This year it hasn't paid off, but they're going all in because look, they know once Breeze is gone, you got to essentially start from scratch unless you luck out and get an Andrew Luck, which there's only been one team that we've seen do.
Yeah, I know. Not too many people have been able to just go from one to another. But again, Breeze just turned 35, so these things are that can is kicked way down the road. But interesting, you mentioned those cap numbers. What do you think happens tonight? What needs to happen tonight for Carolina to win this football game?
Probably need to run the ball, Rich. They've got D'Angelo Williams back, which is a big deal for them. They've got Jonathan Stewart. Those guys are never healthy at the same time.
What year is this? Right? It just seems like it's a Mad Lib.
Yes.
Where you just, the same names, you don't have to change the proper nouns, you just need to change the year. It just seems every year it's D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, and you're wondering who's going to be actually effective and healthy.
Yes, right.
And then from the fantasy perspective, like,
don't play either one.
You know what I mean? Exactly. So those guys need to do what they're always hoping they're doing.
Probably limit Breeze's possessions because Breeze is good against this team. He always has been. If this game were in New Orleans, I think the Panthers would really, really have a problem. Here, they play them very well here. So, I mean, we saw the game last year. I expect another very tight game. I kind of expect it'll be high scoring because I don't think either team defends really well.
That was very artful way of saying the defenses aren't up to snuff. I like that. So they need to run the ball effectively.
Yeah.
Does that Cam? I mean, is that?
And that's Cam on the zone read too. I think. Yeah, absolutely. Cam. I think they'll throw a lot of screens against these guys. They'll try to, because they're starting. Oh my goodness, the offensive line is just it could be a catastrophe tonight. They got a bunch of undrafted free agents in there. Other than Ryan Khalil, it's no one you've ever heard of. So going to be a lot of three-step drops, getting it off quick, trying to keep Cam out of trouble.
Yeah, I just taught Mike Mayock French on how to pronounce the left tackle.
Oh, nice.
Foucault, right? I get that right?
Foucault,
I think Foucault.
Yes.
So what about the Saints this evening? Yeah, merci.
The big thing is they can't win on the road. It's been following them since last season.
But they won in the playoffs, though.
They haven't. They've lost their last 8 regular season games. Every game they've lost this year has been on the road. But here's the thing: it's like they're close. 3 of those games they lost by 6 points total, and it comes down to the takeaway margin. They're even at home. They're -6 on the road. That's why you haven't been able to win road games. But look, I think the Saints team, Drew Brees cannot make the timely mistake, which has happened It happened to Detroit when that game slipped away.
Right.
And I think they need to pressure Cam Newton. They've been able to do it with Matt Stafford and Aaron Rodgers these last couple of weeks. That part of that game has to come back so they can create turnovers and give the Saints better field position, because I think they've only started 2 or 3 drives on the opponent's side of the field this year, and that we're through 7 games.
Larry Holder, thank you, sir. You can read him on the New Orleans Times-Picayune, and Scott Fowler of the Charlotte Observer.
Thanks,
Thank you for
Rich.
joining me here. Thanks both of you guys for coming here.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.